about a couple things today. We're going to talk about sugar. What is it? How does it work in our bodies? And we're going to talk about our diabetes medications. But first, we're going to talk about sugar. Now, I'm wondering, has anybody here ever eaten white refined sugar? And my guess is that you all are saying yes, because sugar is really ubiquitous. It's everywhere in our communities. It's everywhere in our lives. And it's very hard to eat food without sugar. And as a diabetic, that's very challenging. But we can take control, and we can find foods that have no sugar or low sugar. And one of the things that's so tricky about sugar is that we need it. Sugar, which is really glucose, is that special molecule or chemical that goes up, and our brains need it to think. So it's not like we can live our lives with no sugar, because when we eat food, our bodies turn food into glucose. So there's a difference there between trying to find foods low in refined white sugar and how do we work with that on a daily basis. So first of all, we want to know, how does white refined sugar work in our bodies? How does it make you feel? It might make you feel a rush of energy. You might notice a craving or a sweet tooth when you want to have a cookie or a cake or some white bread. And that's because white refined sugar is something that the brain really craves. But it's not good for our diabetes. And that's why we step back and we think about how can we take control. And I want to give you a little bit more information about the hidden sugars in our foods. So first of all, I have a teaspoon here. And you may have had a teaspoon of sugar. You may have taken a teaspoon of sugar and put it in your tea, or a teaspoon of sugar and put it on your cereal. But I want you to step back and think about that a little bit more. So basically, when you're looking at a food label, when I look at that label, the first thing I'm looking at is the serving size. How many servings are in the bottle? My finger goes down and I look at calories, total fats, cholesterol, sodium, potassium, and boom, there it is. It could say total carbohydrate or total sugar. And the new food labels have a total of added sugar and the total sugar that is just part of the food. So that added sugar is that white substance that's refined white sugar. And you're saying, well, Paula, I see grams. I'm not seeing teaspoons. And what's important to know is that 1 teaspoon of sugar is about 4 grams. So 1 teaspoon is 4 grams. So I have a bottle of Coca-Cola. Let's look at that label together. You may have had Coca-Cola in your life, maybe you've had Pepsi in your life, but this cola is full sugar, full caffeine. So let's take a look. Okay, the first ingredient I have is is total fat, sodium, carbohydrate. Okay, so this says it's got 65 grams of sugar, and that means that I have had to spoon out 13 teaspoons. So if I look at the amount of sugar, that's the amount of sugar in this bottle. But you see, when we look at the soda and it's the brown liquid, we don't see this hidden sugar. Another example is iced tea. You're saying, Paula, I'd like to drink bottled iced tea from the grocery store all the time. But iced tea can have hidden sugar. Let's look at the label. Here, I'm looking at the label and it has 41 grams or about 8 teaspoons of sugar. And I don't know if you can see that there. And even foods like Gatorade or smoothies can have a lot of sugar. So we always want to check out the labels. But the good news is there's lots of beverages that we can drink that don't have any added sugar, like water and a delicious bubbly seltzer, coffee, tea, peppermint tea, ginger tea, these are all amazing beverages that you can drink that don't have any added sugar. So we really want to clue you in and make sure that you're looking at the labels. Even things like orange juice, if it's concentrated orange juice, it's going to have sugar. And there's going to be a slide that you're looking at that's going to help you understand orange juice, soda, lemonade, coffee, with like a Dunkin' Donuts full caffeine, full vanilla latte coffee with a lot of added sugar. So that's why it's really important to check your labels. So as we look at this picture together, and you're saying, my gosh, Paula, I didn't know that all of these foods, all of these drinks have hidden sugar in them. But you notice there on the very left-hand corner at the bottom, there is an orange, a beautiful, delicious orange. And it is true that fruit has natural sugar in the form of fructose. And that's okay to have your fruits, because when you have the fruit, it's combined with fiber and lots of phytochemicals, and that makes it slow to digest. And that's why you see a difference between a whole orange, which is a whole food from the earth, as close to Mother Nature as we can get, and the orange juice, which is processed and they've broken it down, and so all you're getting is the broken down sugar. And that leads us into a conversation about this idea of processed food and whole food, and what is the difference? So when I say processed food, what do you think about? For me, I think about going down the middle aisles of the grocery store, where everything is in packaging and it's all cooked and cooked and cooked and broken down. It's not close to Mother Nature anymore. When I think about processed food, I think about food that's found in the middle of the grocery aisle. It's food that has been broken down and cooked and added chemicals, and just, it's not even food anymore. And the reason why they process it or cook it up and add chemicals is because they want it to have a long shelf life. They want it to be able to not go spoiled. So the processed food is the food that has a lot of sugar. They add a lot of sugar in that food because they want it to be stable. They don't want it to get moldy. And there are lots of different examples of processed food. I bet you can think of some. Maybe white bread, potato chips, crackers, cookies, muffins, donuts. Tomato sauce. Oh my gosh, there's so much sugar in tomato sauce. Roll-ups, fruit roll-ups. So it's anything that's been broken down and cooked and put in a plastic bag or in a package. That's not true for the whole foods. The whole foods are what's on the outside aisles of the grocery store. When you go in, you might notice that the outside aisle has a beautiful section of fresh fruits and vegetables, which are thumbs up because they're high in fiber and low in any refined sugar. In the back of the grocery store, there's usually our meats like chicken, fish, beef, pork. And then there's the dairy, where you might find almond milk, cow milk, soy milk, yogurt, and cheese. And staying on the outside aisle with the whole foods is a great way to go. Also, there are a lot of delicious different types of grains. So one thing we've talked a lot about is staying away from white rice, because that white rice basically turns into sugar for us. You're looking for grains with lots and lots of fiber, like brown rice, quinoa, steel-cut oats, oatmeal. Those are all whole foods. And then there are amazing beans. I love beans. Kidney beans, black beans, pinto beans, green beans. Those are all your friends. And also nuts. Nuts are very anti-inflammatory, like walnuts, cashews, almonds, peanut butter with no sugar. So they're great options. Now, in terms of cost, we always want to go high quality, low cost. And that means that you can visit the frozen aisle, because frozen vegetables and frozen fruits are just as high quality as fresh vegetables and fresh fruits. Where we want to be careful is staying away from the cans, because those canned corns, canned beans, they can have a lot of salt in them. So if you're going to use canned, make sure you rinse off the salt. Medications are an important part of our health. And one way we self-management and we take care of ourselves is by taking our medications every day. But it can be confusing about what are all these medications and how do they work. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that right now. You're going to be looking at a picture of the body, and you'll notice that there are some lines that are pointing to different parts. One is pointing to something called the liver. And the liver is an important part of our health. It cleans our blood and helps store glucose or sugar. So why is the liver important? The liver is important because it helps clean our blood, it helps metabolize all of the medicines and break down our food, and it also helps store our blood sugar, our glucagon. Now, medications that work through the liver are one way that we control our diabetes. There's another really important organ, and that is called the pancreas. And that sits sort of in the middle of your stomach area, and you'll notice the line to the pancreas. And the pancreas is itself the organ that makes insulin. So we can work with speeding up the production or making of insulin. Then there's the intestines, those little snakes through our whole body where our food gets absorbed. And that is where the food turns into sugar, and the sugar is absorbed into the body. And remember, we also talked about this idea of different cells in our body, like the muscle cells or the fat cells, and those cells are the little Pac-Man, remember? And they absorb the glucose, absorb the sugar, and insulin helps them. Insulin's the key. So some of the medications work by getting the insulin to bind to the cells and help the cells absorb the sugar. So medications work on different parts of your body: pancreas, liver, intestines, or the cells themselves. So maybe one of you is taking a medication called metformin or glucophage. Diabetes medications, like all medications, have two names: the trade name and the name that it's sold under. So metformin is a medication that helps decrease the amount of glucose that is released from your liver. And some people take it twice a day, some people take it once a day. Then there's some other medications called sulfonylureas, and those are like glyburide and glipizide. And they help the pancreas release insulin better over several hours. There's all different types of medication. There's even one called insulin. You might be taking insulin. Insulin can be short-acting, which means it works for 4 to 6 hours and you take it around mealtime. Or maybe you're taking long-acting insulin where you're using that at night before you go to bed, and that kind of insulin is called Lantus. That's an example. So it's always good to really think about in your mind, what are your barriers? What's getting in the way of you taking your medications? So if you think about a time, just use your imagination right now, just think about a time where you were having trouble remembering to take your med, or maybe you forgot to take the right dose, you took one pill or the other pill, or maybe a barrier for you could be coming up with the money to buy the medications. or you're traveling and you forget to bring the medications in your suitcase. There are lots and lots of barriers to taking our medications. And these medications are really important and help us thrive and live as healthy as we can. So we all need to talk together about how to overcome these barriers to taking our medicines. And what's going to happen now is we're going to take a break and move into that conversation together. Okay, well that's all I wanted to talk about today. See you soon.